Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. It's Friday, May 30th, International Potato Day. We're halfway through the year, and we're celebrating potatoes. Yes, but in Serbia, potato is the most widespread vegetable. Why am I bringing that up? Because this series, The Librarians, the next chapter, takes place in Belgrade. Belgrade,
Yep.
Serbia.
And that's where
insane.
they shot it as well.
Why?
I don't know, because the original took place in Oregon.
Well, of course, they
Portland,
have to
Oregon.
do it somewhere different than the original because this is a spin-off with the original still existing. So, like, the person who runs the library in Oregon, still there, but they needed to take place. But why Serbia? Why Serbia of all places? Everyone speaks perfect English in this show. Anyways, so it takes place in Belgrade. The show is a direct spin-off of the Librarians TV series and the movies that predated those,
Yep.
and those starred...
Noah Wiley. Did you ever watch them?
No, I mixed up what the Librarians was. Going into this show, I thought it was The Magicians because both had shows in the mid-2000s. They were on like weird networks. This is on TNT. The other one's on Sci-Fi. Networks that don't normally put out written script shows, you know?
Yeah, but you were right. It was based off of 3 made-for-TV films that came out from 2004 to 2008, which all aired on TNT. And then 2014 came around. They decided to make a spin-off of that TV series. I think Noah Wiley was even in it.
He executively produces this, so
Right.
I assume his hands are all over it.
And they got the same co-creator from the original, Dean Devlin, who's done some other shows that we have reviewed.
Who's the other one? John Rogers? Dean Devlin and John Rogers, they're the show creators, and they also decided to write the first episode. So that's the one that we're going to review.
And Dean Devlin, he's also co-created, directed, wrote, and executively produced Almost Paradise.
Okay. That's the same guy who stars in the Librarians TV series, not the Librarians the next chapter, but makes an appearance in this one, stars in Almost Paradise.
Yep. And then Dean Devlin also created and wrote The Ark.
Okay.
That came out. That's
also
a sci-fi
sci-fi
show. Yeah, that came out in like 2023.
And it got a couple seasons.
Yeah.
Right?
And so the Librarians TV show came out in 2014. It was an instant hit, but despite it being the most watched cable debut of 2014 and consistently gained high ratings, they decided to cancel it in 2018. Then Dean Devlin, for the next couple of years, goes around trying to shop it. They're not able to find anything. Then goes to the CW. The CW makes that deal with Nextstar, decides that it's going to cancel all its DC shows, and the CW in the last chance is like, make us something, make us anything, and he's like, The Librarians, and that's how the sequel series got made.
For TNT though, so CW became TNT, or
yeah,
what do you say?
So about midway through, especially because of this Nextstar deal, they are just wanting to make CW reality TV. Dean Devlin then decides that he's going to try and go to TNT, and then CW and TNT make out a deal, and then they get a 2-season order and decide that it's going to come back to its original home at TNT.
There's a lot of shows we've done where it starts off on one network, and then that network makes a deal with another network, and it ends up airing on that network.
The first one that comes to mind was like the Spiderway Chronicles.
Yeah, that ended up on Roku. Where did it start?
Disney.
That started on Disney? All right. Well, this is a fantasy adventure, so kind of Disney-esque, about a team of individuals who are tasked with defending Earth from magical artifacts, spirits, what have you, using a museum/library annex that they have control of. You don't have to look far for comparisons because it's really any show where you have a team who fights monsters and they have their own like personal lair. Doctor Who, the main character is very much a superhuman. Legends of Tomorrow, that was the same deal. I think in the first couple seasons you had Rory from Doctor Who playing that superhero Sherlock character. And then Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they had a library. Travelers, that was a group of like weird aliens that worked together to fight evil. Torchwood, Hellboy, also had a library. Scooby-Doo gang, Outlander, because of the time difference. We'll get into that in a minute. Lock and Key. And then finally, The Magicians, which I already said was the show I confused this with.
The one that I had was Buffy because it seems like the themes of the series are friendship, team building, chosen family, and sacrifice. But
you can say that about all of them, though. Even Supernatural in the later seasons had this like Men of Letters or something where their family and the history had this huge museum/library. And so the last few seasons, that's where they lived. and they were able to fight monsters using all the resources that they had.
Another thing that all the ones that you mentioned is that they're campy, very campy, and it feels like
This is
the
a kid's show.
Librarian.
Yeah, for sure. And so you have to put that into perspective when you're watching it. You're watching something that's supposed to be made for fun. A lot of the jokes are cheesy, like you're saying, or hokey. 2 episodes are out right now. Our focus is on the pilot. So I think the way that the episodes read is you're supposed to read the full title first. So the Librarians, the next chapter, and the Deadly Drekavac. Because that's this monster of the week here is the Drekavac.
Yes, and that's how they're going to go. It's supposed to be an episodic series.
Right. And so there's a lot of plot to get through in the first 50-minute pilot. So I'm going to speed run it, and then you can ask me questions about it if I go over something too fast.
Okay.
You got Vikram. He's this swashbuckler back in 1847. He's the librarian because every library annex has one. And he tricks an evil general, General Gregor, into a time bubble because he's stopping this guy from like taking over the world, stopping him from getting this really important sword.
Do you see the magic take place? Does he like pull out a wand or what
No,
happens?
he uses a scarab. He uses like an ancient artifact. So what he does is he takes stuff from the library that's supposed to remain there. Think of it like in all those horror movies, but especially the Patrick Wilson ones where he has like where they would take the evil thing home with them and just keep it in the back room.
Like The
Do you know what I'm talking
Conjuring?
about? Yes, like The Conjuring, or like in Harry Potter when he goes into Diagon Alley, and he ends up going into that one shop with all these cursed objects. Well, the librarian in the 1847 timeline, he is kind of a little bit liberal with his takes. He would use some of those items like he's not supposed to. He would use the magic to trap some of the bad guys. He's not supposed to do that. Ends up screwing himself over because when his sidekick or guardian is supposed to pull him out of this time bubble and save him, he gets shot. The guy outside does. And so he's stuck in the time bubble with this general, and he ends up being saved by the current 2025 librarian, whose name I think is Jacob, right? Does that make sense? He gets pulled out of time by Jacob, and Jacob Stone's like, yeah, I found out that you were stuck in this thing, and I knew that right now I could pull you out in Belgrade.
So quick question, just in terms of, I guess, like the superiority of the positions with the librarians. This librarian you're saying is being taught by like because you said his guardian.
No,
So-
the guardian is like the muscle, is like the bodyguard.
Oh,
And so
okay.
I'm not sure if the person who got shot in 1847 was technically his guardian or just a sidekick, because again, they work as a team. But when he gets to the 2025 timeline, you now have 2 official librarians, 2 leaders in charge, and there's a little bit of an ego there. Vikram wants to go back to his own timeline, but Jacob's like, we're not going to mess with the timeline. We've saved the world plenty of times, and if you go back, you could end up screwing it all up, right? But Vikram escapes anyways. He goes back to his original lair, sees that his library isn't there anymore. And so what he needs to do is he goes to this magic well to restore his old library annex, which it does. But at the same time, he accidentally releases a bunch of evil shit. Think about it like Spider-Man No Way Home, when Doctor Strange messes up the spell enough times and suddenly you have magic and all these creatures coming out of nowhere. That's what's happening here. You have all these artifacts that are supposed to be docile or dormant, and they're waking up, and all these monsters are going to start appearing because of this guy recreating his library.
With this show taking place in Serbia, do we ever know how Jacob Stone, like what he's doing there?
Yeah, he traveled there to literally get Vikram out.
Oh, so he already knew about Vikram.
Yes.
I thought it was just like he stumbled upon it or something.
No. His job, he pulled him out, and then he's like, so you're going to come back with me, and we're going to work together. And instead, Vikram's like, no. I got to get back to my old time. Later on, we realize why. He's kind of in love with this lady named, I think, Anya, who ends up being the fiance of the evil General Gregor.
Everyone has ties to everyone else, it seems like.
Right, but his part of the reason he probably selfishly wanted to put General Gregor into that time bubble was so that he could, go hang out with Anya. We also find out that Anya, so when he creates the new library back in his old lair in Serbia, right, it's underneath this museum, 2 people are affected by all this magic that comes out, Liza and Connor, and they just happen to be around there for different reasons. They touch on this, I guess, object that puts a thing on their hand, but we don't see that scene. So we just see their hands glowing, and that just means they've been marked by the Drekavac, a demon that began as an abandoned, unbaptized child who over the years turned into a Bigfoot-looking insane monster that could possess you with its scream.
And how did the monster look? Did it look realistic?
So Drekavacs, I learned this afterwards, are supposed to look like Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
But instead, they made this thing look ridiculous. Like, again, Bigfoot. It
Yeah.
looked like Bigfoot. And if I was going to show you one part of the show, that would be the part, because they have this thing running around in the middle of the day around the Citadel, around these museums and shopping malls and stuff like that. And it was hilarious.
What they originally tried to do was for the pilot, Devlin tried to kind of make the monster very inexpensively. They just put a guy in a suit and they started
But they put
shooting.
some CGI around it.
Well, no, what ended up happening was the final result worked so poorly
Yeah.
that they were just like, you know what, let's just use CGI because this doesn't look realistic at all.
It looks like CGI, but it also looks funny. And that's what they're going for in this show. It's a kid's show, like I said. So Jacob comes back to the library. He realizes what's going down. He gets mad at Vikram, but at the same time, he has to deal with all the well, which is still leaking magic. And so he tasks Vikram and Liza and Connor to go out and stop this Drekavac that's running rampant in town, right?
Yeah.
And of course, Vikram he steals something from his own library and uses it as magic. He uses this like little spying glass in order to find the blood where they'll find the Drekavac. They track the Drekavac down and they end up being joined by Charlie, who is the guardian slash muscle. She's sort of in a trial period. Sounds like she screwed up at one point. I don't know if that was in the previous show or if that's something that we're just going to learn along the
I
way.
think it's something that you learn along the way.
Right.
Charlie Cornwall is who you're talking about.
And so she joins the crew, and now they're all looking for the Drekavac, and the Drekavac ends up possessing this member of a metal band, and they're not exactly sure which one at first. And they also get this holy water because that's supposed to freeze Drekavacs, and then once they're frozen, you can deal with them. But that doesn't work. The holy water that they use just falls off the thing, and it ends up having possessed the girl in the group, the sister of the band member who they thought that it was going to possess. It chases them into an aqueduct. Aqueducts obviously have water from the earth.
Yeah.
And so they use that water instead as holy water, and it freezes the Drekavac. And then they perform a baptism.
Wait, how do they use it as holy water?
Well, I think they do a little blessing over it.
Okay.
But because they determined that the water that was used in the church that they got the first holy water wasn't technically from the earth or something, that it had gone through a filtration process, which got rid of the minerals that were needed to freeze this thing. It's goofy.
Aside from Charlie Cornwall, just as a quick question, as this whole chase is going down, are they only doing this because they've, as you said, been marked by the Drekavac? Is that their only reason?
The Drekavac is after them. That's why
Right.
it chases them into the aqueduct. It wants to either possess them or kill them. And by how they possess them is it screams so loud and so annoyingly that it just gets into the mind of the person that its
It
target.
just sounds like a siren.
Yeah, but then it just makes them miserable, and I guess, but the whole point is that the reason why this Drekavac even exists is because it was abandoned as a kid, and so it also cries a lot. And so the idea is that Vikram is able to release the spirit out of this girl, this metal band girl, from by just kind of giving it a pep talk. And also doing the baptism, and then its spirit leaves, and the metal band chick is left naked, but she's covered up real quick. You don't actually see anything, and then that's the end of their journey with the Drekavac. They return back just as Jacob is done with his magic, like stopping, but he realizes that there's probably a lot more magic that has been released in Serbia, so he's going to have to stay. But that's when Vikram sticks in and he's like, I caused this mess. I'm going to stay here. Liza and Connor decide that they're going to stay there as well, and so does Charlie. And so then Jacob decides to go home using his little portal. So every library has like a Howl's Moving Castle door where you can just walk right through into a different room. And the best joke, I think, or the best callback to the previous series, even though I never saw it, was as the guy was leaving, Jacob was going back to Oregon, you said, he's like, Jones, knock that off, you blah, 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 blah. And so I assume Jones was another character that they were making a callback to.
I think it might have meant Noah Wiley.
No. Jones is Noah Wiley, I think, is either him, Jacob, or a previous version of like a librarian. Jones would have been like a side character that he was just making
Got
fun
it. The thing that's interesting to me, though, is that it seems like even though this Drekavac, they were able to defeat it, like Liza and Connor, those are the two people, right? They just decide that they're going to be there, but like, do they even have a real reason? Or are they
Right.
trying to be librarians?
So I tried to gloss over that because it ended up not being as quick a speed run as I thought I would make it. But yeah, let's get into why they're there. So Dean Devlin Devlin, John Rogers, and TNT, they had one job with this pilot, right? They had to sell the old audience on new canon or entice a new audience with fresh adventure. And how do you do that, right? You introduce a charismatic new lead, smart but reckless. That's Vikram. That's Vikram Chamberlain, the guy from
He
1847.
compared his character to the White Rabbit in Alice in Wonderland because he wears many masks, as he put it.
Does he now? Okay. That's not where I would compare him. He reminded me a little bit like Nandor, maybe like out of time, but at the same time trying to fit in. It's set in a familiar but different setting. Obviously, it's a library, but not the library because everyone, the one in Oregon, the one in Serbia, they're just like extensions of what the other library is,
Right.
what the true library is, and it's in its own quantum state. And then create a surrounding cast or team, each with their own specialty. This is where we get into the background of the side characters. Charlie, who was introduced last, she clearly like wants to prove herself because she betrayed, I guess, the group at one point. Liza is a mathematician physicist who just inherited the castle where the library is. So that's why she was there. She was actually led by, I think, the gift shop lady who was showing her around her new bequeathed castle. She goes downstairs, she turns around, the shopkeeper's gone, and instead she's staring down a big painting of herself. And this is where it becomes sort of like Outlander, sort of like Doctor Who with Clara's storyline, sort of like Captain America, where you realize that Anya from Gregor's fiance
Yeah.
either looks exactly like Liza or they are the same person and she is going to be cast back in time at some point.
It's a little bit like the CW. I remember there was this character called Catherine, and because in Vampire Diaries, like the first season, there was this character named Catherine, but it looked exactly like the main character.
They did the same thing in Riverdale where there were multi versions of the same character. It's been done before. It's interesting as far as like the Liza character is supposed to be this super genius who's about to go back to America because she's got an investor meeting and she needs to make money. But now because she knows that magic is real or she wants to see what's going on with that, she decides to stick around for a while. Charlie, on the other hand, sorry, not Charlie, the last one. Connor Green. He is this eccentric young historian. He went to Harvard, he went to Cambridge, he was a teacher, but then he got too stuck in the conspiracy, which led him to the library. And no one's going to believe him. Even his social media won't believe him at this point. And so he's decided to stick around just because he really loves helping with these magic lessons, I guess.
So you said that the like three people kind of had one job to do with the CW. Does it feel
3 people? 2 people have one job. The TNT was the last thing.
Yeah, okay. But my question is more: does the pilot set up the future of the show?
Yeah,
It seems
that's
like
what
it
I was getting to.
does.
So they had to have a monster of the week, which was the Drekavac, but then it also needed to set up the season thread, which Gregor is banished to a frozen time sphere. Think like Zod in the second Superman movie, if you ever saw that, where he's like stuck in a glass portal or
Yeah,
something
right.
that's just like outside of time. That's kind of where Gregor is. We even see him at the very end. He's teased because the metal band Bro, the guy who was the brother of the sister, right? The one who
Right.
we originally thought was possessed. He still has that time glass thing that he can see the tears with, but he can also see just like, I guess, difference in temporal distillation. And so he ends up seeing Gregor through it and Gregor starts yelling at him. And then also the idea that Charlie is in a trial basis, that's going to find its conclusion somewhere along the lines. And then finally connect it to the original enough, which I think they did because they brought in Christian Kane, who is the guy who plays Jacob.
Well, the thing that's funny about Jacob Stone is that I think he was supposed to be in more of the series, but he's been off also with Dean Devlin shooting Leverage Redemption. So
that is true. Okay.
Dean Devlin, he even said that it seems like he's plotted out season 2 because he knows how many episodes he's going to be in. Jacob Stone for like both seasons. They shot episode 7 of season 2 yesterday. I think season 2 has already been plotted out.
Yeah,
so when
and
they
the
were
first season's supposed to be like 16 episodes, right?
12 episodes.
Oh, I thought it
Yeah.
was more.
But
Okay.
I mean, like, it seems like the show has already been plotted. So I imagine, yeah, that's why I was asking if they had kind of set up the future for the show, because it seems like they have a clear idea of where they're going
It's
with
also
it.
an easy show, Monster of the Week type community, Scooby-Doo things. They were able to chuck out billions of those episodes. It probably isn't that hard to write these. If you don't like hokey, formulaic, silly humor, don't even check it out. Lots of the jokes center around a guy who is from the 1800s, so it's like he's not recognizing what a car is, or phones he doesn't know what phones are or video is, and metal music is confounding to him. He doesn't understand why people would want to listen to it. That type of humor. That said, I think that the playful Scooby-Doo type acting and the energy has its perks. My favorite joke was when we didn't know who from the metal band was getting possessed. And so we heard them practicing, and the guy singing sounded exactly like the monster did earlier. So you were like 90% sure that was him. And then you find out in a twist of fate that it's not. And that was really funny because, I mean, like, that was just yeah. And then odd stuff like there's no police in Serbia. There's a giant monster going around attacking the public. There are warheads getting shot off because of magic that's escaped. And there's no authorities whatsoever besides these librarians. And they don't seem even concerned that the police are going to show up. You've already answered the question, why Belgrade? Why does everyone speak perfect English? Because it's an English show that's on TNT as opposed to on HBO, where everybody would be speaking the appropriate. Like, you know, have you ever realized where, like, the more budget it has, the more they'll be authentic to the region?
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's funny that you just say a thing about budget because Dean Devlin, it seemed like he kind of really is known for his blockbusters. He wrote Independence Day, Godzilla, the 1998 movie. He even directed Geostorm, which he explained during post-production he was kicked off, and he called it the most disappointing project he ever produced.
Why was he kicked off, did it say?
I didn't get like that far into it.
Is
but
Geostorm the Rock movie?
It's the 2017, I think, Russell Crowe movie. It's a disaster film. But
okay, so it's not San Andreas.
No. But he got like these big blockbusters, and then I think he kind of downscaled to doing these TV shows.
And then I wonder if we're ever going to learn what happened to the gift shop lady who had been showing Liza around. Clearly, she had an ulterior motive because, like, Liza, she had no reason to be down there otherwise. So I think she's, like, in on it somehow.
Well, could it be like Liza's, I don't know, the chosen one or something? I mean, because she saw herself in this big painting and she had no real reason to be there otherwise.
I just don't know enough history about the Librarians, but I feel like she plays an important role. Like, there's this, like, weird kind of neutral party that would sometimes, like, guide people into the right direction. Like, it's her fate to be part of the Librarian crew. I also appreciated that they did have Jacob. It seemed like that guy fit really well into that universe. Like, he treated it like it was, like, you could just tell his comfort level compared to everybody else who was having to introduce himself. He was just like, I'm old hat. I know how to do all this.
Was he better here than he was in Almost Paradise?
I think he played a more confident role in this, even though in Almost Paradise he is supposed to be sort of in charge, right? Yeah, but for a pilot, this does everything it needs to except land the ending. I think the baptism was really dumb. I'm just going to give it a 5 out of 10, which is just middle ground, neutral. I wouldn't go around recommending it to anyone unless you're already a fan of all those other comparison shows that I threw out there, because it's just like those.
And it seems like the reviews for it kind of already have a soft spot for it, because IGN said The Librarians: The Next Chapter is a charming throwback with a Monster of the Week format that's light, fun, and refreshingly unburdened by heavy mythology, and gave it a 7 out of 10.
So, okay, so like overburdened by like the over dramatic mythology, because there is mythology in there. All right, thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.